The following program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to think and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes. Welcome. It is Wednesday, July 27th, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world, even in Pocatello, Idaho. We've got a Pokey Smokey in the chat room. I bet you're from Pocatello. You know, my favorite bong ever came from Pocatello, Idaho, surprisingly enough. Hey, we're going to have ourselves a great time on today's show. Thanks for joining us. All sorts of fun and frivolity happening, and let's get right to it. Introducing right here in the studio, back from their tour to Southern Oregon, it is Ganja John.
That was a delayed reaction.
That's about how fast you're working today.
Yeah, that's you can measure the delay there.
Yeah, Ganja John and the entire studio audience is just chilling, man.
Just chilling, bro.
All right.
Chilling.
How was the concert scene down there? You went to Eugene. You went to Jacksonville.
Well, yeah, it was cool. Eugene was cool. We didn't get backstage or anything. There were some mix-ups, but we did get to watch a little bit of a Revolution show just by ourselves. We were the only people in the audience.
Right on.
So that was cool.
All right. Also joining us here in studio is Wiz Kaliko. Hey, Kaliko, how you doing?
Good. Glad to be back. Glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you here. And I understand we've got a photo we're going to debut. We'll debut it later on in the show once I get it loaded up on the show. But a very important photo of Wiz Kaliko. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Also joining us from our virtual studio in beautiful Grastoria, Oregon is Cannabis Carrie.
Hello. Happy Wednesday.
Hey, Carrie, thank you for making it in. I know today is you do your folk show there on KMUN, coastradio.org, and you had to bike your way back real quick. So how's it going?
It's going pretty good. It's a little crazy on Wednesdays, but I'm so thrilled to be here, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, well, that sounds excellent. Well, tell us what we've got on our headlines today, Carrie.
Well, today we're going to cover an interesting story about a junior high child who was involved in a sting operation. Also, we're going to go to San Diego, where the murkiness of the legality of the dispensaries there get a little bit murkier. And we're also going to go to Seattle, where a signing ceremony today had everybody talking about it.
All right, that's coming up, and they have headlines right after the first break. And then following that, at the 20 after break, we've got your Daily Toker Tunes, and today is Irie Wednesday. We're going to get some music. NorCal Perps is our editor, bringing us Natty Vibes and their tune called Mary Jane, because we needed another tune called Mary Jane. And then at half past the hour, as we do every Wednesday, we've got Dr. Mitch Earlywine joining us for our Cannabis Science segment, where you can ask your live questions through our chat room or by calling us at 971-533-7111. We got some new studies and polls we're going to talk to him about. And then at the end of the show, a little bit of a radical rant. Is it normal to be sexist? We're going to take a look at sexism in the marijuana industry, marijuana trade, and marijuana reform organizations. So should lead to quite a discussion in hour 2 for our Toker Talk Radio. Also coming up later today on the NORML Network, the debut of High Times Free Weed with Danny Danko. Stay tuned. We're right back after this.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated.
Did you know there are more tokers than Texans? Hi, I'm Radical Russ Belville, host of NORML Show Live. It's true, there are more adults who will consume cannabis in America this year than the population of Texas. This and thousands of other statistics and polls are part of my new book, NORML's Big Book of Marijuana Facts, including 19 full-color poster-sized infographics of cannabis data.
An entirely legitimate topic for debate.
If we're going to have that debate, we need the facts. But NORML's Big Book of Marijuana Facts isn't just some listing of statistics and tables. It's truly a big book, a huge weatherproof binder that becomes its own 12 by 18 presentation easel. The colorful charts are jam-packed with facts that draw interest, and the explanatory text is all rigorously researched from reputable sources. You can make the case against prohibition with the government's own numbers. You can learn more about NORML's Big Book of Marijuana Facts by visiting stash.norml.org/bigbook. Pre-orders are available and shipping begins September 1st, 2011. That's stash.norml.org/bigbook.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
Seem to have some problems getting Carrie on the line here for our cannabis headline news here, so I will bring you some news as best I can. We get news from the AP, Associated Press, signing ceremony in Seattle, Washington. This is having to do with the local ordinance to regulate medical marijuana dispensaries. From Associated Press, Seattle Mayor Mike McGinn scheduled a signing ceremony Wednesday with the city attorney and other officials to sign a bill regulating medical marijuana like any other business. The bill passed July 18th by the City Council requires that medical marijuana operations be licensed, obtain food handling permits if they sell marijuana cookies, and follow all other regulations such as land use codes. The approach contrasts with several other cities in Washington that have imposed moratoriums on such operations. Medical marijuana regulations in the state have been uncertain since Governor Chris Gregoire vetoed portions of a bill that would have created a system of licensed medical marijuana dispensaries and collective operations. Now, we will be keeping an eye on this. The regulation in Seattle may or may not actually be able to go into effect because of that veto that we have from the governor there. But we'll get you posted and see if we get Carrie for our next story.
Things in San Diego got even murkier for the 160 dispensaries that are opening there. The San Diego City Council voted on Monday to repeal a previous regulation ordinance, once again putting their existence into a legal limbo. The San Diego medical marijuana dispensaries are now operating as they were before the regulations happened, illegally, but it's unclear if the city will make any effort to shut them down. 4 months ago, the council voted in rules for the existing dispensaries there, but a coalition of medical marijuana advocates collected enough signatures from registered voters to place a repeal of the new rules on a future ballot. So instead of spending the $1 million price tag just to put the issue to a vote, the city council decided just to rescind the rules the groups were fighting against. The city council approved a comprehensive and heavily debated list of rules on medical marijuana businesses that would have forced the city's 160 dispensaries to shut down temporarily and apply for operating permits. But dispensary owners and cooperative collective directors said that the rules were far too strict and that the city leaders were just trying to ban them altogether. So on Monday, both sides urged the city council to simply repeal the restrictions to avoid a costly election. More than 46,000 signatures were turned in to force an election on the new rules. They said an election was necessary since the new rules were a de facto ban on the dispensaries. So now it looks like we're back to square one in San Diego when it comes to the fate of the dispensaries operating and thriving in the new industry. Eugene Devatovich, the local chapter coordinator for Americans for Safe Access, says he hopes to see medical marijuana advocates propose a new city ordinance to the city council and to try to create new regulations through the city's planning commission.
Well, I think San Diego's starting to realize that anything they do to try to thwart the will of the people on this issue is going to continue to get challenged. We're not going away. People have recognized their medical rights since 1996 there in California. And no matter how much you conservative folks down there in San Diego don't like it, it's the law, and it's here to stay. And you're going to continue to lose money trying to fight this. You fought it before all the way to the California Supreme Court, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and you've got your hands slapped down every single time you've done it. The thing to do here would be to work with the medical marijuana activists there, work with the patients there, and craft regulations that everybody there can live with instead of continually trying to fight this stuff. We're hoping for the best, and good luck to everyone there in San Diego.
And in Colorado, the nation's first state-certified medical marijuana training school called Greenway University in Denver, Colorado, has been suspended from teaching and also told to return any money that they collected back to the students. The Colorado Department of Higher Education suspended the university, saying that they provided false information on their application. A local TV station obtained a copy of the sworn affidavit that Greenway's CEO Gus Escamilla signed and submitted, in which they say he is providing the false information. The application asks, quote, has any principal owners, officers, or any person in a management capacity ever been convicted of or pled to a felony or are charges pending? Escamilla answered no to that question. We found out that Escamilla had pled guilty to felony grand theft by embezzlement in California back in 2000, but he says he was under the impression that the charges had been expunged. It is unclear what will happen to the university and its students, but the university is planning to appeal the board's decision. We're going to bring you any more developments of the story as it comes in, but for now, there's some students that might be getting their money back.
Interesting story there. And, this is going to happen as medical marijuana becomes more of an industry. We're going to be plagued by the same kind of scandals that other industries get plagued with. I've heard of trade schools in the past or culinary schools, getting caught, doing things that are improper or unseemly or even illegal. So we have to remember as we discuss these issues that the framing of it is not that it's, medical marijuana is shady. It's that medical marijuana is like any other industry. There's going to be a bad apple here and there that makes it look bad for the rest of us. And then we have to illustrate how the vast majority of the industries involved in medical marijuana are on the up and up. They're following the regulations. They're trying to craft the regulations in some respects and doing everything they can to be legal, good, upstanding members of society. We'll keep you posted on more issues like this one.
And this is a fascinating case that caught my eye this week. A 14-year-old boy in California has been awarded $1 million in damages after participating in a drug sting. The 12-year-old boy was attending Porter Middle School in California when staff gave him cash and asked him to try and buy drugs from a 14-year-old boy who was suspected of selling marijuana at the school. After the boy participated in the sting, he was ostracized and bullied afterwards, and he ended up having to move to another school. The attorney for the boy and his family say a superior court and a superior court jury deliberated for an entire day before they found that administrators were liable for negligence and intentional infliction of emotional distress over the incident. The money will go in part to pay for the boy's private education. The school district has offered no comment so far on the outcome of the suit.
This is how reefer mad and how addicted to prohibition our society has become. I mean, I've told stories like this before. There was the story previously where the girl was strip searched for, hiding an aspirin or an ibuprofen or something like that. And here we got 12-year-olds being recruited to be snitches and narcs, going undercover to make drug buys on behalf of the school administrators. Really? This is how far this has gone? You couldn't find, some 21 Jump street cop to be 12-year-old, I guess. We're going to recruit the kids now. And to not make light of this, I mean, this is a serious thing that happens more often than we'd like to admit. I remember telling the story, was it 2008 or 2009, of the girl Rachel Hoffman there in Florida who was recruited to a drug sting, and the two guys she was buying the drugs from took her out to the backwoods and shot her in the back of the head. I don't anticipate 14-year-olds doing anything like that in the school, but as you can see from the story, the kid ends up getting bullied, getting ostracized, a terrible fate for somebody who's, 12 years old trying to get their education. I'm glad he got this settlement for $1 million. Let's hope that it does him well in his private education, and that he can go on to do wonderful things with his life. All right, I wanted to bring up a story that I had found while looking around the news today. A Lansing medical marijuana clinic in Michigan offering free pot to register to vote. A Lansing medical marijuana dispensary is offering medical marijuana patients a choice of a half gram of medical pot or a marijuana-laced baked good called a medible in exchange for registering to vote. On the dispensary's website, the owner, Skakina Pina, writes, "Protect your access, vote 2011. All dispensaries are doing a voter registration drive. If you sign up at your healthy choice, we will assist you in filling out the registration form and will mail it out for you. We believe in power in numbers and everyone taking a stand. So in appreciation, we will reward legal patients with a 0.5 gram free or free medible. I'm planning an event for the preliminary voting that will have shuttles to the polls. We will have to amend our Lansing ordinance. May God bless our efforts." The webpage then encourages readers to support Lansing City Council candidates Derek Quinney, Aylin Robinson, and Harold Lehman. It also encourages readers to vote against City Council candidates Carol Wood and Jody Washington. But in an interview with Pena Wednesday, she denied she was offering free pot or medibles in exchange for the vote. If they fill out the registration form, she says, we are offering a compensation of a discount on their purchases that day, Pena told the Michigan Messenger. That's it, to help out those who wasted their gas to come in here. A spokesman for the Secretary of State says that while ultimately the decision about whether or not a crime has been committed is up to a local prosecutor, Michigan law does address situations similar to this. Quote, "Generally, if it advocates voting on a specific date and for or against certain candidates, it is likely an illegal inducement to vote," says Fred Woodham's spokesman for Secretary of State Ruth Johnson. In this situation, you have someone potentially offering a valuable consideration to induce someone to vote, end quote. And this is something I've addressed before in a previous story, a previous situation where a dispensary was offering it was like a free joint if you gave it cans of food. And again, I do not want to see as another one was offering free marijuana to go to a city council meeting or something like that. Folks, we cannot be doing tactics like this if we want to be taken legitimately in the political theater. This is just not under consideration. It would be as unseemly as offering someone $20 to register to vote, right? It's the same sort of thing. You're offering consideration as an inducement to vote. Democracy should not be bought and paid for. And I know the irony is stinking when we think about Citizens United and the corporate ability to funnel as much money as they want into political campaigns, but that doesn't mean we have to be as bad as them as well. We need to be better than. We are fighting from a deficit of public support and trust. We have to be better than. And when we're offering to trade weed for votes, it does not look good. And as the Secretary of State pointed out, could possibly be illegal. So knock it off. And one more quick story that I've got here to end up our hemp headlines. A Florida mayor, age 84 years old, says the grass in her yard was not hers. This from Oak Hill, Florida. The 84-year-old mayor of a central Florida city says someone tried to ruin her reputation by planting marijuana on her property. Mayor Mary Lee Cook defended herself during an Oak Hill City Commission meeting Monday after narcotics agents found pot growing on her land. Volusia County Sheriff spokesman Gary Davidson says Cook has not been charged. He says the incident is under investigation, but investigators do not believe the mayor knew the marijuana was there. Cook says narcotics agents came to her home 2 weeks ago to check out reports that she was growing marijuana. The plants were found near a kicked-in section of fence near her house. During Monday's meeting, Cook said she would not resign. She said she would deal with any further harassment by hiring an attorney. Well, There we go. That's the old overgrow the government theory, right? Folks, this is not good to be breaking into people's properties and planting weed, to try to frame them or harass them. Not a good idea. Now, should you accidentally drop a few seeds in a public park or a public national forest or a public right-of-way, I might have to look the other way.
I'm thinking about a break. What do you
I think a break is well-deserved, and we will get to some important THC testing here. We'll be right back with your Toker Tunes.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
You want to legalize it? Call your congressman today. 202-224-3121. It's free, it's easy, and you don't even have to give your name, just your zip code, and they'll hook you up to your congressman. Call 202-224-3121 and tell Congress you support marijuana legalization.
Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. That's what you got to do. Liberate your mind.
Hey, is it 420 yet? This is Rick Cusick from High Times Magazine, and you're tuned into NORML's Audio Stash.
Been busted? Need a lawyer? Call the NORML Legal Committee for an attorney near you. Find one at NORML.org. Remember, attorneys are cheaper than a lifelong criminal drug record.
It's that freedom. I'm
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we get tunes for Irie Wednesday, our celebration of that mellow vibe we find in the best of reggae, ska, calypso, and Latin music. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's daily Toker Tunes.
Hey there, NORML Show Live Stashers. NorCal Perps bringing you this week's Irie Wednesday tune. Natural Vibrations, also known as Natty Vibes or simply Da Vibes, uses a combination of reggae, rock, and classic Hawaiian influence in their music. With strong roots in Jamaica and Hawaii, Natty Vibes tries to combine the promise of both aspects of music. Their song lyrics are explicit and uncensored, yet smooth and romantic. Natural Vibrations style perfectly represents classic beach culture. So let's bust out some old school Hawaiian haze, and here is Natural Vibes with Mary Jane.
coming through the room tonight, dressed in a silhouette by candlelight. 'Cause you can tell when she comes into the room by the sweet smell of her perfume. just having fun. She'll steal your breath with just one kiss and leave your mind out there in the abyss. I'm talking about that Mary Jane. She knows my name. Mary Jane, my Mary Jane, yes she is. Mary Jane, my Mary Jane, love you girl. Mary Jane, she ease my pain. Now when no one else comes to me, she brings me peace, she brings relief, yes she do. And sometimes late at night when no one's round, it's with Mary Jane where I can be found, yes. Mary Jane, she knows my name. Mary Jane, my Mary Jane, yes she is. Mary Jane, my Mary Jane, love you girl. Mary Jane, she ease my pain. Mary Jane, my Mary Jane, Mary Jane, she is my pain, yes she does. Mary Jane, my Mary Jane, love you girl. Mary Jane, she knows my pain, yes she does. Washington, Mary Jane. Oregon, Mary Jane. California, Mary Jane. Hawaiian, Mary Jane. Tomorrow one, Mary Jane.
You want a copy of that song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing Media and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527. Hey, Tokers, this is Radical Russ encouraging you to check out the great music this summer. And one group you should definitely check out are big supporters of NORML and marijuana legalization, and that's Slightly Stupid. Get all the details online at seedlesssummertour.com. Slightly Stupid. Revolution. Swayze. and Cisco. It's the stoniest show of the summer, coming to Missoula, Boise, Redmond, Washington, Eugene and Jacksonville, Oregon, Lake Tahoe, Berkeley, San Diego, Salt Lake City, Aspen, Denver, Asbury Park, Guilford, New Hampshire, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, Baltimore, Charlotte, Cocoa Beach, Boca Raton, St. Augustine, Atlanta, Raleigh, Columbus, Ohio, Chicago, Mesa, Arizona, and Irvine, California. Don't miss it. For more details, visit SeedlessSummerTour.com. Seedless Summer Tour is sponsored by Seedless.com, Sector 9, Groove Shark, Revolution Vodka, and Silver Surfer Vaporizers. This is NORML Show Live.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years. They've got mandatory sentences, and these judges just say, they throw up their hands and say, there's nothing we can do. There's mandatory sentences. We've got to take a look at what we're considering crimes.
When the Reverend Pat Robertson from television's The 700 Club
criminalizing marijuana, criminalizing the possession of a few ounces of pot and that kind of thing, I mean, it's just...
makes more sense on the marijuana issue than the President, the Congress, and the Supreme Court.
It's costing us a fortune, and it's ruining young people. The young people go into prisons, they come out, they go in as youths, and they come out as hardened criminals, and it's not a good thing.
You know we're winning.
It's time for NORML Show Live's Cannabis Science with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Dr. Earlywine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York in Albany and the author of Understanding Marijuana. Now here's your dose of cannabis science.
All right, for the last time this month of July, we join Dr. Mitch Earlywine in New York. How you doing, Doctor?
Having a great day.
We're having a good time, too, here. And there's a story up at NORML.org that we actually talked about last week, that Australian study about the cognitive functioning of former users, light users, heavy users, and all that. And so Paul Armentano wrote that one up. We already talked a lot about that. But at the end of that, he also made mention of a 2009 study, and I thought this might be fun to start off with. Investigators at UC San Diego reported binge drinkers who also used cannabis experienced significantly less white matter damage to the brain as compared to subjects who consumed alcohol alone. And since we know binge drinking is something that's, engaged in by lots of college students, spring break time, summertime, and also marijuana tends to be used by young people, what does this tell us about using marijuana? Is it somewhat helpful here for people that drink a lot?
As you can imagine, I don't want to say, if you're going to drink a lot, well, smoke some pot to keep the damage down. And this was a single study done by a really respected crew down at that joint program in clinical psych there. So, I mean, these are my homies, if you will. What they did find was that the folks who were binging but who also smoked cannabis didn't have the same deficits that the folks who binged alone had. But the effect itself was relatively small. Anytime you got to do the imaging to find the differences, it's not going to be this huge deal. And I think the real message should be, hey, cannabis does have some neuroprotective effects, but by all means, man, don't binge drink.
Right, and let's talk about the damage of binge drinking. This white matter damage to the brain. What's that going to do to you?
Sad but true, but my friend Sarah Jo Nixon did some of the first work on this all the way back in the 80s. What we're seeing is folks who consume a lot of alcohol consistently over years gradually get larger ventricles in the brain. Those holes in your brain that are there for, holding cerebral spinal fluid actually start to get bigger, which is a sign of cellular death. We also see some deficits in the frontal lobe, the front part of your brain that separates us from the iguanas, basically, the part that helps you think and decide not to drink so much anymore. So ironically, that damage that alcohol causes is actually in the area that could help you stop drinking alcohol.
Now, what do you think of this from a cultural aspect? The movie Hangover 2 was a big hit this year, and we have all sorts of college movies that kind of demonstrate binge drinking as being fun, exciting lifestyle. And then compare that with the fact that when it comes to drugs, they want to show us these pictures of brains with holes in them, but not alcohol? I mean, culturally, what does that say about our society that we don't expose or educate people to the dangers of binge drinking?
Sad but true, and in fact, when you look back at movies from the 40s, I mean, I really love those flicks, but everybody's got a cigarette and a drink in their hand in every single scene. And we've at least seen the data with cigarettes suggest that these movies actually do have an impact on teens' perceptions of risk associated with their use. With alcohol, the effect is there, but not quite as large. One of my honor students actually just replicated that recently. And it breaks my heart to then see something where somebody smokes pot and ends up shooting heroin the next day or something like that, which of course is absurd. I mean, just completely ridiculous. I'm glad to say that there are, new shows, the special on the History Channel that has Alan and me in it. I'm really excited that that's getting a whole lot of play. I heard that another station is going to have something on one of the Oakland dispensaries soon, and I feel like slowly but surely we're turning the corner on this, so let's spread the word.
All right, we'll keep doing that here, spreading the growing truth about cannabis every day at Normal Show Live. And we're going to take some questions from our audience through the chat room or through our phone calls at 971-533-7111. Before we do, Dr. Mitch, are there new studies, polls, or things that you'd like to tell us before we start taking questions?
I did just send Philippe Lucas some new data on the dispensary users who are using cannabis as a substitution for other drugs, and it's just very impressive to see that folks who've been in treatment for both alcohol and hard drugs are turning to cannabis with some success.
All right. Does that data also include, what I hear from patients a lot, how they cut down on their painkiller and prescription use as well?
It's definitely the case, although I didn't word the question well enough, so I'm not sure if they mean those drugs or just any prescription drugs. And a lot of folks who are using prescription drugs, say for nausea or something like that, also endorse that same item. And so now I got to try to sift through and see who's doing what.
More data. That's all we could ever ask for. All right, let's get some questions here. New Jersey Leaper wants to know, what are the ramifications regarding blood, platelets, white blood cells, and use of the blood, and whether or not a blood bank cares with respect to people that use cannabis?
As it turns out right now, at least in the U.S., blood banks are really, really eager to get any blood they can get. If you have had exposure to, say, intravenous drugs, or you've had sex for money or something like that, there's questionnaires that you fill out to explain to them that that's the situation, and you let them decide. As far as cannabis is concerned, I mean, if you went in currently high, yes, it would be, first of all, a bummer of an experience, but also something that would be maladaptive for the blood bank. But if you've used recently but aren't high at the time, there really shouldn't be any implications.
If you did, theoretically go into, say, the Red Cross really blazingly high, would the active THC in your blood remain active for the next person who received the transfusion?
If they split it out to plasma and cells, odds are high that person wouldn't experience much, but if they happen to get your whole blood, they definitely would catch a little buzz.
Interesting. All right, let's go to our questions here. Damon from the chat room wants to know, there was a story in Indiana that the urine tests for probation were showing 1 in 5 false positives. That's a pretty big error rate. Have you heard of that in other states and other studies showing the false positives of these urinalysis screens?
Never one that high, and I'm eager for news like this to get out because when I attended the ONDCP's drug testing thing and asked them how often do they have false positives, they said never.
Never.
And I mean, that just cannot be the case unless you set the threshold so high that only Tommy Chong would test positive.
I've come to be reviewing a lot of statistics, a lot of numbers lately, and I've learned that anytime someone says always or never, you should always check it and never trust it. So there we go.
Well put. Well put.
Brett Maverick has a question for us. Can cannabis help with a neurogenic bladder? And if so, how? And for my edification, what's a neurogenic bladder?
You're out of my bailiwick here. I'm assuming neurogenic bladder often means either pee shy or some kind of contribution to the way the bladder functions. We don't understand a lot about that in and of itself, and the role of cannabinoids in it seems to be relatively minor. If there are medical approaches to that, there are also some behavioral ones, and I feel like the behavioral ones may have some advantages and certainly no side effects.
Okay. We're speaking with Dr. Mitch Earlywine from SUNY Albany, one of America's leading researchers on drug and alcohol issues in America. And you can get your questions in here in our chat room at live.normal.org, and Carrie will get those for us through Skype. Or you can call us here at 971-533-7111. Lisa Boston has a question. And this is something I'm just now hearing about, and maybe you can fill us in. What do you think of the new way of drug testing through metabolites in fingerprints? they turn a specific color depending on which byproducts are detected.
The idea behind this was essentially we were going to see if you've had cannabis on your hands recently, and then that would be a sign of relatively recent use. Now, obviously, if you were working in the hemp industry, it couldn't, be a ridiculous false positive. The test itself looks like it's fairly reliable, although not perfect. But the whole idea that having had pot in your hands recently means you are impaired in driving, for example, really frightens me. And I'm not optimistic about this approach. I hope it's one that doesn't catch on. I much prefer roadside sobriety type tests that show you're actually capable of the kind of motor functioning that co-varies with driving, because that way you catch folks even if it was an antihistamine impairing them, or they're just too tired to drive or something like that, instead of trying to isolate folks who happen to have had their hands in a cannabis product recently.
Right. For me, it seems like it's not so much that they're trying to detect your impairment, they're just trying to detect who and what you are. It's a subtle form of discrimination here based on body chemistry or these things that might be on your fingertips or something, rather than whether there's an actionable reason to impede your freedom and your way of life. That's what I always hate. The rank discrimination of it just makes me angry.
If, for example, we did something comparable with alcohol, I think people would be really resistant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Is there any indentations on your finger similar to those hand-opening bottle caps? Right? And you can see those little indents. You've opened a bottle cap lately. Off to jail. Okay, let's get to another question here. People are asking a lot of questions here about the drug testing, and let's kind of run this down for them, because there's many different ways now: hair, saliva, urine testing, blood testing. What should people know about those 4 different methods?
The clincher here on all of these is that there's no surefire way to beat them, and that's the thing that I get the most emails about. Hi, I'm about to go to the police academy. How do I beat the drug test? As it turns out, the only thing that really will make things go for sure is abstinent. A lot of the urine screens are actually available relatively inexpensively online, so you can test yourself to know, have I been long enough before I have to go in? And believe me, you wouldn't be the first person to do that. The thing with the hair test is they tend to go back a lot further. So if you've got long hair, you might think, oh, this is no big deal, but they tend to grab hair any way they can. So if you happen to be someone who shaves your head, that doesn't necessarily mean you're safe. And the hair tests, unfortunately, do have some bias against folks with dark hair, curly hair, thick hair, because metabolites tend to hang out in there. If you're in a pinch, I hate to say it, but if you basically permed your hair, bleached it, straightened it, and then dyed it back its original color, although it won't look good, it certainly won't have a lot of metabolites left in it.
All right. We've got a question from Nutmegger for Normal. Wants to know if there's any new research on CBD and CBN. Now, I did recently read a piece, I think it was Times, Maya Salovitz was writing it up, about using JWH, I think it was 133, to trip the CB2 receptor, and they were looking at that as a way of combating cocaine addiction. So that story or any other new information on CBD or CBN?
CBN is not getting the attention I wish it did, cannabinol, in part because it's just really hard to understand exactly how it works and even where to guess for what you should look for it doing. The CBD literature is definitely growing all the time. It's incredibly recondite. These abstruse studies of strange things going on in mice right now that don't have a ton of implications for humans just yet, but as those get closer, I'm happy to keep people posted. That cocaine-related decrease in relapse rates with the cannabidiol was promising, but that effect wasn't huge. Cocaine addiction, of course, is a really hairy situation, so anything that looks like it might help is, definitely a big plus and worth investigating. I'm glad to see folks working in the cannabinoid system on that.
Yeah, and as I read that story, Salovitz's story there in Time, one of the researchers talking about it said what a wonderful drug this would be if we could, use it to combat cocaine addiction, in that it would not produce a high. Right, that the cure would not produce a high. And so, Dr. Mitch, I was wondering, is that the new standard for drugs in America, is that none of them get you high?
It's sad but true. They seem to like the ones that don't get you high, but that doesn't mean those are the best sellers.
Okay. Well, we visit with Dr. Mitch Earlywine every Wednesday in our Cannabis Science segment here at NORML Show Live. So if you'd like to get your question asked, you can join us every Wednesday. But sometimes you might have a question that maybe you don't want addressed to the whole general world out there. So you can also send your questions in by email to 420research@gmail.com. That's 420research@gmail.com. And you never know, your question might become the basis of a study someday. It's happened before. Dr. Mitch, what are you doing right now as far as studies and new stuff that we should be expecting to see from you anytime soon?
Basically just battling journal editors to get this PTSD in cannabis data published. So right now it's been less science and more politics, but I'm going to keep fighting away.
And the PTSD data has shown?
Essentially the sleep problems and the sense of being sort of lost in the world, if you will, and some of the flashbacks seem to decrease according to our vets who've come back and used cannabis.
That's fantastic news, and I wish you luck in pushing that to the journals, because that's one of the most disgusting aspects of our prohibition on marijuana, is that we're not letting our soldiers use, our returning soldiers use the best medicine they can get to help treat the horrors that they suffered through in the wars that they served for us. So I really hope that goes far. Thank you so much, Dr. Mitch, for doing that work and for joining us here on NORML Show Live.
See you next week.
All right. When we come back, some radical renting. Is NORML sexist? Let's check it out.
Sir, do you think there will or should come a time for us to discuss the possibility of legalization, regulation, and control of all drugs, thereby doing away with the violent criminal market as well as a major source of funding for international terrorism? Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President.
Well, I think this is a entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Name the time and place, Mr. President. At NORML, we've been prepping for this debate for 40 years.
I'm a doctor.
I'm a lawyer.
I'm a journalist.
I'm a student.
I'm a teacher.
I'm a representative.
I have cancer.
The outdated laws of prohibition are more dangerous than the plant itself.
I lost my scholarship. I was fired.
20 million arrests since 1965. This is getting ridiculous.
Our prisons are overcrowded with non-violent offenders.
We have the opportunity to change.
This is costing our country billions of dollars.
Making my family and I fight in a courtroom is difficult enough when I'm already fighting through chemotherapy.
There's no reason to be scared by tradition anymore. We can stop this.
We can stop this.
We are the American people.
We can stop this.
And you have our support.
We're old,
young,
straight, gay. We're every race and nationality.
And we're not going to give up.
You can tax it.
You can regulate it.
Apply age restrictions.
You can create millions of new jobs.
We can save our economy.
President Obama?
It's time for legalization.
Legalization.
Yes.
We
can.
NORML Show Live reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while and share.
The day was hard and your work was long and you need a break from all that's wrong. You better look at the clock cause it's 4:19. Time to reach in that pocket for your bag of green and smoke that weed. Smoke that weed. Smoke that weed. Smoke that weed.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Hoorah!
Radical rant.
Is it normal to be sexist? Now, it's not exactly a rhetorical question. When you look at the statistics, the more one smokes pot, the more likely one is male. Those who have tried pot in their lifetime are 54% male. By the time you get to the daily tokers like me, it's 68%. That's 2 tokers for every tokette. Is tokette sexist? Well, anyway. Then there are the trade magazines and the expos. You know, the advertisements of the naked women covered in buds. Well, that's been a complaint for a long time among many women and some men commenting on the cannabis culture. Now, the medical marijuana industry is flourishing in California and Colorado, and with it come the trade shows where some vendors compete for traffic by employing scantily clad spokesmodels. So on one side, you have the free speech and sexual expression advocates explaining that sex sells. The marijuana industry is no different in that respect than the fast food, car, and beer manufacturers. But then on the other side, you have the civil rights and reform advocates explaining that, well, fast food, cars, and beer are legal, and they don't have to fight for legitimacy and respect in a political market as long as they're fighting for eyeballs and dollars in a commercial market. It's more than an industry. It's also a civil rights movement. Now, should free speech and sexual expression be curbed for this political correctness? Or do we flaunt our freedom to communicate any message we like, risking that it may harm our recruiting efforts and public opinion for legalization? Bottom line, if you'll pardon the pun, are the extra dollars from advertising marijuana with babes in booty shorts worth impeding the legalization of marijuana? And maybe if you make a profit off overpriced marijuana due to prohibition tariffs, it just might be. Now, the reason this comes to my mind is because of a Facebook zit I just popped. Now, I know, gross, but it sums up succinctly my general impression of the social network. When I get complaints about NORML chapters in my position as outreach coordinator, as soon as I see Facebook in the description, my eyes glaze over. I know what I'm about to read will be a sensitive, painful public eyesore that is taken far too seriously, makes a tiny mess, and is then forgotten. Like a zit. However, this time a complaint caught my attention because it was about one of our chapter directors and had been forwarded to my colleagues at the NORML Women's Alliance. It seems the director had posted a graphic on his wall, someone found to be sexist and violent and unbecoming of a NORML leader. Now, it's a safe for work graphic as long as the word vagina is safe for your work, and well, if it isn't, well, it's too late now, huh? And I've got a link up at the blog at stash.normal.org if you'd like to look for yourself. Basically, it's a picture, and pardon me for the language on it, it's a picture of an old-time 50s movie of a man striking a woman, and the comment along it says, "Fuck your vagina, I've got man things to do." That's the graphic. So that was taken to be offensive, and the complaint was made to the Women's Alliance. Now, needless to say, my colleagues at the NWA were not amused by epithets accompanying a photo of striking a woman. But the posting is on the director's private Facebook page. However, his position as a NORML leader was listed prominently in his profile, and he often promoted his chapter's work and events through that public page. We asked the director to either remove the one offensive graphic post from his personal Facebook page or make the page truly personal and remove reference to his leadership position at NORML. Now, it's a more measured response than I personally would have given because I can't imagine a leader of any other political organization posting such offensive material publicly and then being allowed to remain in a leadership position. I mean, do you suppose if President Obama, Representative Boehner, or Speaker or House Majority Leader Reid had a personal Facebook page with such a graphic that, people wouldn't make a big deal about it? That's the level we need to live up to. We in the marijuana legalization movement are working from already a public deficit here. We're working from a deficit of trust and respectability. We can't take any of these chances. Now, unsurprisingly, the director became irate about NORML censoring him and not respecting free speech. He defended the graphic as being funny as hell and that 99.9% of the public found it hilarious. He disparaged our founder, Keith Stroup, railed about political correctness, and lamented how NORML wants to restrict his freedom of expression because of the complaints of a couple of, quote, pissy little bitches, end quote. He resigned, telling us we've, quote, lost the most important person NORML had, end quote, in the area, vowed to spread the word of our transgressions, and pledged to be our mortal enemy. In other words, my first instinct was correct. We're better off without such a lout. I'm shocked, though, that it came to all of this. How is it that male tokers who wish to be public leaders of the marijuana movement can't understand how institutionalized sexism holds us back politically? Does our outlaw counterculture and male-female imbalance just shelter us from recognizing the sexism that the mainstream's been addressing and correcting for over the past 3 decades? Or does our culture actively foster an environment of sexism? This is important because women's support for marijuana legalization in the latest polls lags behind men's support by 10 percentage points. If women supported legalization as men do, there would be overall majority support for legalization nationwide. Women, for many reasons, and not the least of which is the pressure to be good mothers, are more afraid to voice their support when they do support legalization. Now, critics have complained about the overwhelmingly male boards of NORML and other drug reform orgs, and rightfully so. But for so many years, there was a dearth of capable women stepping up to the plate. Now, that's not the case so much anymore. We've got strong women in NORML like Candace Hawes in California and Ellen Comp in California, Norma Sapp in Oklahoma, Cher Neufer in Ohio, Mary McKenzie Crow in Arizona, Anna Diaz in Oregon, Ann Davis in New Jersey, Tanya Davis in Ohio, Lori Duckworth in Oregon, Karen Goldstein in Florida, Linda Adler in the Virgin Islands, Carly Duran in Texas, Ruth Liebsman-Martiniak in New York, Jennifer Foster in North Carolina, Dee Duffy in Virginia, Carrie Gallagher in Oregon, Lauren Wolpen-Mayton in Colorado. They're all leading or have recently led NORML affiliates and chapters all across this country. And Madeline Martinez joined NORML's board in 2007 and is joined by Greta Gaines this year on the board. We are moving in the right direction. But still, 16 of 67 affiliate and chapter leaders is less than one female leader in 4. 2 of 15 board members being female is an even worse disparity. How much of this crisis in female recruiting is attributable to their lower representation among tokers generally, and how much of it is attributable to strong, capable women not wishing to jump into a movement they perceive as sexist? Well, I'll do everything I can to recruit more women to the cause. I encourage everyone to visit our NORML Women's Alliance page. It's at norml.org/women. And I'm always eager to continue this conversation on NORML Show Live and in the comments on our blog at stash.norml.org. We must increase female support for legalization, or it will never happen, period. All right, that's the official Radical Rant. We'll talk a little bit more about this here as well. Just stop the recording. But I wanted to show you just an example of what we are portraying as the public face of marijuana legal. And I don't mean we as NORML. I don't mean we necessarily, those of us here in this chat room and all. But this is, if a person had never knew anything about marijuana, if a woman never knew a thing about marijuana and went to a marijuana event, these are some of the scenes that she would see as she's wandering around the event. And these are in booths that are supposed to be, medical marijuana, because, nothing says medical like cleavage and booty shorts, right? This is what's being shown as our public face, and beautiful, wonderful women, and at varying degrees of what you would consider sexy attire. But here, a pole dancer at one of the events? Really? We have to have pole dancers at our events? This is not what you would see at a political convention necessarily, anybody that's trying to be taken seriously there. Maybe a car show. I guess you could, have stuff like this going on at a car show. So it's something I really am going to be concentrating more on as we go through this through these years and all these different events that we go to, because it's really something that has to be addressed. And there's all sorts of ways of getting involved. I mentioned norml.org/women. There is now a sister-to-sister program that they're doing where women who are with the NORML Women's Alliance are teaming up with young women who are on Students for Sensible Drug Policy chapters, SSDP chapters, so that they can mentor and work on these issues. There's all sorts of great female-centric organizations out there. Sarah Frank runs a great organization called Moms for Marijuana, momsformarijuana.org, that's looking at the issues that are specific to women who are mothers. And these are things that we need to keep focusing on, and we will keep focusing on. And I'm happy to say that it is changing. You know, one of the complaints that my wife has always had since the beginning of me getting into this is whenever we'd get an issue of High Times magazine, how was there's boobs and buds everywhere you look. But I've noticed over the past, few years through my subscription that's becoming less and less, that the ads for the phone sex ads have gone to just one page and far more covered up than they used to be. The ads of the naked women covered in buds are far fewer than I've ever seen. I think we're starting to come around to this. I think it's starting to happen, but that's also going to require a lot of our primary audience, young men, between the ages of 18 and 29, to come around to this as well. We love our women, we love our female tokers, and there's nothing wrong with sexuality and beauty. Not saying that at all. It's just a matter of what public face do we want to put on our movement if it is so important for us to bring women into it. We'll take this subject into Hour 2 in Toker Talk Radio. Our phone number is 971-533-7111 if you want to discuss that or other things. We've also got photos. Coleco, a world premiere Coleco photo. We'll talk about the Brit Amphitheater in Jacksonville, Oregon.
A little bit about David Wu, maybe.
And some David Wu talk, perhaps. That and your calls at Normal Show Live's Toker Talk Radio. Thanks for joining us. For Cannabis Carrie, Ganja John, Wiz Coleco, I'm Radical Russ. We'll talk to you tomorrow, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Take it out one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes.